In this GYDA Talks, Robert talks to Adam Graham. Adam is founder of Grey Matters and is a creative, commercially focused new business and marketing specialist driven by a desire to help B2B businesses stand out and grow by building reputable brands. He believes strongly that business owners need to be braver and more honest to create authentic and differentiating brand stories that can attract the right long-term clients. Robert and Adam discuss commoditisation of offer, what's changed and what works post-COVID, quick wins or sustainable biz dev, plus much more.
I've got a whole bunch of questions, and if people watching or listening want to put questions into the chat, that would be great. I'm going to kick off straight away with maybe it's more of a chestnut than ever, which is, are you seeing commoditization of offers? And if you are, what on earth are you meant to do about it? You know, everyone's commoditizing and making it productized and similar.
We always do see commoditization happening across the industry in various different ways. I think, there are a lot of production specialists in our space, and they have a rightful place, and that could be like video production or website development, and it could be very specific things that they deliver. And so obviously that always gets into those kind of businesses, although they're very specific about what they do tend to become more commoditized and be bought on price, and find it very difficult to differentiate themselves because they're so fixated around a service. So those kind of specialist type businesses we do see get commoditized a lot, and then it's about trying to work out what makes them different. And I think the big shift, we try and encourage those businesses or any businesses that are feeling commoditized, is to focus more on the challenges that they solve for their clients and less on the services that they offer. So that's becomes if you're going out to market with a long list of services, or it's the first thing that people see when they land on your website, we do SEO, we do this, do that. There is an obviously need for that. From a buyer's perspective, they need to know that you do these things. But as I say, they often, some people don't know what they need to buy, and therefore they need to come into the journey in a slightly different way. And it's more about what's the challenges you solve, what's the opportunities that you create for businesses, and then that could result in a number of different services that you need to sort of implement to solve that problem. And that's kind of a journey we take people on. It changes the way you sell, it changes the way you present your offering, it changes the way you ask questions, and it becomes much more consultative. So that's the sort of typical progression we see for many agencies that need to take. But a lot do struggle with it, and a lot do kind of always lead with service.
Why do I totally agree with you. We've just run a big program for a large internet platform, helping people do sales presentations, and the original sales presentations when we started were all about, hello, we've been around for 15 years, and these are our services, and these are our products, and here's pictures of our dog and our cat, and blah blah blah, and it's like, what do these people not get about the fact that when I'm wearing the customer hat, I don't care. What I care about is what my problem is and how you're going to sort it out. So I'm really curious about why you think that people still feel the need to pitch that kind of dull traditional pitch. We all went on that pitch course 10 years ago that said, and hit them with a power punch right at the end. And actually, I think that's entirely wrong. I think what I want as a customer is I want to understand that you totally get what my problem is and you can sort it out for me.
Yeah, I think the reason people do it is because it's easy, right? Because you've got a service like, if you've got a market stall and you sell apples, it's very easy to sell apples. But if someone's hungry and they're not looking for apples, then you're going to have a struggle selling to them. And I think it's a lot easier to sell a commoditized service-driven business. Like, we just do SEO. That's what we do. Do you want it or not? And I think that's why people do it. In their minds, I think it's easy for them, but then what they don't appreciate is flipping it around and putting themselves in the shoes of the buyer, and the buyer's then looking at a plethora of agencies and different services, and they've got challenges, and they could go so many different directions. Marketing is so complicated like these days, in terms of offline, online, the different channels, where to invest your money. So it's never, as a marketing consultant, it's never easy to sort of say, well, yes, this thing will solve your problem, because there's about 20 different ways they could solve the problem. And what the buyer needs is someone who could help them navigate that landscape and get them to the best solution. Now that requires a lot more work and effort, and also sometimes skill set that falls outside of the seller, because they don't know how to help that person. They only know how to sell apples or SEO or whatever it is that they're selling. So I think it becomes, it's where people need to have more of a consultative approach to things, where people need to be more open-minded about the options available to a buyer. They need to be more empathetic to the buyer's position and what they're going through, and that you might not have all the answers, but it's about trying to help them navigate. And that is, solve, don't sell. That is the whole approach of actually trying to help people on that journey, as opposed to just saying, well, I've got this product, so I'm just going to push it in front of you, and you're going to buy it whether you like it or not. And that's where a lot of sales get lost. I think that's where a big chunk of pipeline probably gets completely written off, because it's very easy if someone needs SEO and you sell SEO, and it's like, great, match made in heaven, that all works out very easily. You'll probably have to compete on price, and whoever's the cheapest will probably win that piece of work. So it leads to sort of bad relationships and all the rest of it. But the minute you start getting outside of someone who goes, I don't know if I need SEO, I might need SEO, or how does SEO work with other things, and they start having all these other conversations, that becomes a slightly different sales process. And that's where I think people struggle to sort of help buyers on that journey.
There's been a whole piece of work from Gartner, which is worth checking out if people haven't seen it. And premise number one, premise number one is customers are overwhelmed. It's just like, oh my God, I went to Google to find out how to get to number one, or I decided I wanted to sell more frozen fish or whatever it was, and I clicked in and Googled, and there's 8 million trillion zillion different ways of doing it. And Gartner, who kind of championed what was called challenger sales, where you kind of make it, well, you don't make it difficult for the customer, but you actually go to the additional stage of really trying to get what their problem, their hurt, and their need is, and don't just take that for granted. They've come up with this kind of new approach, which is if you fire hose people with information, they're totally turned off. If you say, tell me what you need to know and I'll find the information for you, they're not so turned off. But if you, what they call do sense making, so you say, which is exactly your point about consultative sell, which is Mr. Mrs. Customer, what is the problem you're facing at the moment, and what would good look like, and what are you trying to be able to do? In that case, there's an awful lot of stuff out there, but let me just point you to 2 or 3 directions so that you can make sense of what the opportunities are for you, and the response rate to sense making, to people actually being, I think it's about being on the side of the customer as opposed to being a salesman. I think it's everyone hates it. Sorry, Adam. Everyone hates a salesman. Yeah. I mean, I think sales is the best thing you can do with your clothes on, but everyone hates a salesman. Everyone loves a teacher, and I think there are a whole bunch of clues there, not that are going to work 100% of the time, but I think that there's a whole bunch of clues there about how we can handhold and help our clients to actually feel comfortable with the decision.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of interesting things within that, and I guess it depends on your approach and your view of sales and what selling is, right? And it's a murky area, right? And I agree with you in that selling for me, has never been about, I've got this, I want to sell it, or I want to drive this much revenue. It's just been about helping people. So I've always had the opinion that if I just sit on the same side of the table as the buyer and I see it from their perspective, and I completely you take myself out of the equation, because this is what drives it. It's your own selfish needs, which are normally around money, and therefore I need to sell. But it's ironic that that's the same thing stopping you selling. that own desire about yourself and what you need and the costs you need to cover in your business, right? Now, you have to sort of remove yourself from that. And I know that, and I did this during the pandemic last year, I know that if I go out, if I mentored people, which I pretty much do on things like this or calls, or I just carried on mentoring people all the time, did it for free, I wouldn't have a problem with sales, right? But I'm going to give all that time away to help people, to teach people, to guide people. I'm not going to sell to them once. I don't need to sell to them. Ultimately, you prove yourself, you demonstrate your value within those conversations, and that inevitably leads to sales.